this is Phil Potempa. Welcome to another edition of Notoriety. Each week we bring you everything, what is to be marked on the calendar, what's not to be missed. All those ticket opportunities in Northwest Indiana, Chicagoland, and beyond. And, of course, we couldn't be here without our generosity that comes from our sponsors and underwriters, the folks at People's Bank, the Indiana Arts Foundation, and, of course, we want to also thank Indiana Arts Commission and also the Legacy Foundation. We couldn't be here these past 8 years without their support. Some of you are tuning into our traditional radio airwaves on the dial. Others of you have got the added advantage of streaming as we come to you from our Strack and Van Til studios here in Hammond. So you have the added opportunity to see everything that's happening through our cameras that is happening here in studio. Most of all, we're just so glad that you are along here for the ride. We are talking about all things newspapers. What's in the headlines? What's the scoop? And my guests are going to share exactly just that. We're going to introduce them right here, closest to my right. First, we have
Amy Crane.
Next,
William Crane.
And
Abigail Smolnicki.
Oh, the last name changed by the end of the couch there, right? All of our friends here have come from the east. They're from the Holdcraft is the Performing Arts Center in Michigan
Correct.
City, and the actual theater stage group is the Youth.
Young People's Theater Company.
That's it.
YPTC.
And if you have the advantage of our cameras to take a peek into our studios, you can see there's some branding going on right here with a couple of our cast members and a part of the team. And it's Disney's Newsies. That is going to be the production that's opening this coming weekend. And we should let everybody know that today's broadcast is being time-stamped. Today is July the 14th, so on this Monday morning is when it is. In case it's a rebroadcast, you'll know exactly how to plan. This run of Newsies goes from what to what, Amy?
So it starts the 18th and it goes for 2 weekends. So it'll go through, I believe that's the 26th.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, you're exactly right. And, and I was surprised. So the first performance, don't be confused, it's not a Friday night, it's not a Saturday, it's going to be on a Sunday. Is that right?
Oh, no, it is a Friday night. Yeah,
it is
this Friday, the 18th.
Okay, so we open on Friday. And then you've got your Saturday evening, and then you have a Sunday matinee.
Correct.
Is that it? Okay,
Yes.
Very good. And, Amy, give us each of you, let's go through our lineup here and get your capacity of what your part or your team member opportunity is in Newsies. So you.
I am the director.
And.
I am the lead role, Jack Kelly.
All right, very good.
I'm a secondary lead. I play Crutchy.
Oh, yes, okay. And so for those of you who are not familiar with it, this is one of my favorite of all times. And it's kind of been a sleeper hit. It's done very well on Broadway and on tour. But when it first came out as a movie, which is, way back, I want to say in the 90s or so, it was a Disney movie that was really, I think it might have been even made just for Disney Channel. Perhaps it did have some screen time, but it really didn't do all that great. It did okay, but it wasn't until it kind of transformed and found a whole new life with a young generation that it is such a wonderful hit. And all of it is historically based as well, right? Amy, you want to tell us a little bit about the synopsis?
Yeah, it's based on the Newsboys' strike of 1899 when Joseph Pulitzer, among others, decided to hike up the prices that the newsboys had to pay in order to get the papers that then they sold on the street. And it broke the newsboys who were already hurting. There were trolley strikes going on already. So the kids got together and they decided to form a union. And in doing that, they brought down those big names, and they had to find a compromise.
So if you think about it, think turn of the century, and think about these huge publishing media, really they were just kind of the titans of their day. Joseph Pulitzer and his lead competitor was William Randolph Hearst.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, we didn't have internet. We had radio to some degree. We didn't have really anything to do with television or any of these other electronic media devices. Everybody got their news through newspapers, and of course, I have ink in my blood as a longtime journalist for 30 years, and some of the evidence is stacked here at the desk in front of me from some of the old and yellowed clippings from over the years. But everybody had to have those ink-stained fingers for reading what was happening for the news, and the newsboys, primarily boys, maybe it could be other, it could be some females slipped in there as well, were the ones that made sure the newspapers made it to the corner stand or delivered to the home steps. A lot of people, again, would buy them just right there at the newsstand. But the way it worked was almost like a franchise. These kids went and purchased a certain number of papers from the printing operation, to which then they had to sell them all. And again, they were only getting just a mere fraction of probably what these overall very, very wealthy media titans were making at the time. And to make it worse, these two men were always rivaling and fighting with each other. Joseph Pulitzer, you might know from, of course, the prize that's named the Pulitzer Prize, but his big flagship newspaper was the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, as well as a couple of the big New York newspapers. And Hearst was even larger. He had newspapers that spanned the entire country. In Chicago, he had the Chicago Daily American, which eventually got absorbed into the Chicago Tribune, which is underneath the umbrella of the columns and stories that you write, which we always say this show is kind of the equivalent of. And so this is going to unfold to say exactly what they did to try to fight. And it's almost like a David and Goliath story, correct?
Yeah, that's actually a line in the show. They compared the kids to that. There's a character named Catherine who is a young upstarting reporter, and she decides to cover the strike, which is not historically accurate. There is a Catherine, but she's not quite that involved in the overall story. And even Jack Kelly is based off of another kid that that helped start the Newsboys strike. But he's kind of a conglomerate of a bunch of actual historical figures.
Gotcha.
But yeah, she writes in the newspaper article that it's David versus Goliath. These kids,
so that's a
going
nod
up against
that's in
the
there.
companies. Yeah.
My hat's off to you. This is not a production that is done all that often. Primarily, we'll have our producer Joey flash and do a parade of some of the promo photos. It's a period piece, which makes it very difficult. You can't just wear those T-shirts you have. Those are great branding T-shirts that say Newsies. The period costume is really kind of the added character to this. And there are some very opulent costumes. I know there was a photo, I think, of a lady with a huge, beautiful wide-brimmed hat and the tight-fitting bodice and the long skirts. The Newsboys as well. When I saw the tour come through, the Broadway tour came through, a few years back, and I know at the Souvenir Stand in the lobby they had Newsboy caps, so I made sure I bought one of those. But you have to have Newsboy caps. I see there's some of the vintage kind of the newsstands there, and these are the folks I know are the brokers, right? These are where they buy their papers.
Yeah, that's Wiesel and his two cronies who are kind of his bodyguards, the Delancey brothers. So
That's right.
They sell the boys the papes.
And look at that cast. That is a cast of how many, Amy?
So that's not even the full cast. That's just the Newsboys, and there's 26 of them total. And then we have a cast of 37 because we did have adults play the most of the adult roles. But we start at age 12.
Okay.
But we've got, of course, up in the upper range of our middle age, but we don't talk those numbers.
That's right. Exactly. That's fuzzy math for us. Before we continue our conversation, let's go through and do our important dates, website, and how to get tickets, Amy.
Great. So the dates, like I said, we open this Friday, which is July 18th. And we run for 2 weekends. Fridays and Saturdays, the show is at 7, and Sundays, the show is at 2.
Good. We have a cheat sheet right up there.
I believe, I was just going to say with the website, that's going to be a challenge for me to do off the top of my head. But it is at the Holdcraft Performing Arts Center, which is on Spring Street in Michigan City. I believe that the website might be yptc.com.
Yeah, and a quick Google, if you put Holdcraft in there, Michigan City, it comes right up.
Yeah.
How many seats is in that venue, that space, remind me?
That's a good question. Somewhere over 400.
Because
sure.
Is
It's
that building
more,
space a former high school from
yes,
years ago?
So it was my former high school, which was Elston High School. Then it was the middle school for a while. Now half the building is occupied by the Michigan City YMCA, and then Holdcraft occupies the other half, and then the A.K. Smith Center is its own building.
Now
so a lot of people familiar with it.
Is where we get to ask a couple fun questions. I always say these are the tough Larry King, Joan Rivers kind of questions for our young cast members here. And you as the director, maybe this was a part of it. I mentioned this even recently, I think in last week's interview with our guest that we had from a theater company. A lot of times the very first step after the auditions and after the casting is a table read when everybody's together. And the director might at that time take an opportunity as you're reading through to stop and explain what might be a term that is just a term from throwback time or a reference to something that would have been very important in that time that maybe a young person just wouldn't know or it just has escaped them, but it'll help them understand what they're talking about to live the scene. Has there been anything that came up in the script for either of you that you were like, what are they talking about? I don't know what is this about when they talk about, I'm just going to throw something out here, typesetting. What is typesetting? Or wait a minute, when they say the newspaper is going to go to bed at 10 o'clock and, some type of maybe a term that would only be familiar if it was something that you were in the industry? Anything stand out in either of your minds?
Something that sticks out to me was just like, this isn't like an industry term
Sure.
for the newsboys, but we use the term puss for like face.
Yeah.
I know Jack says this puss could like
That's
sell
right.
so
yeah,
many papers.
easily sell 1,000 papers a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Later, one of the characters, Finch, says something, my personal puss on a wooden nickel.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so when you
yeah.
hear that in modern times, that's kind of an awkward phrasing.
It is, yeah.
Yes.
But once we're
Yeah.
like, we're in the rehearsals, we're in the moment, it feels so right to say.
That's
It-
old-timey
yeah,
talk, right?
It feels
Yeah.
very accurate.
Talks about that face that usually that would mean kind of that perfect look, or just the opposite. Look at that ugly mug.
Yeah.
But wow, look at the puss on that guy. That's somebody who looks very debonair, maybe, or perhaps anything that you were going through that you thought, Amy, they're not going to know what this is. I need to explain that this is this or that.
I think it's more the vernacular than it was any. There's not a whole lot of terminology based on newspapers selling and that kind of stuff, but there is a vernacular because it is so heavily based in Brooklyn and Manhattan and all the
Sure.
burgs of New York that there's a lot of accent work, and so there are some certain words and turns of phrase like puss would be one, but even and they make fun of it in the vernacular in the show when there's the character of Race who says, the world is your oyster, and everybody's like, Your what? And he's like, your oyster, the fancy clam with the poil inside. And
That's
so
good.
it's a running joke, and I know a lot of people's favorite line from the show.
Yeah.
That's on stickers and all kinds of stuff. So I think it was more a vernacular sort of speak.
Sure.
Is like, do you understand what this phrase means using those
Absolutely.
words as opposed to how you would say it? So it was more along those lines, not so much technical terminology.
And again, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I'm trying to think of things like, well, tomorrow's Bulldog edition. That would mean a really early edition of something because there was a major news breaking, so they would do a special or extra when you're shouting that something else has happened that they wanted to really scream across the headlines. Both of those newspapers, if you've taken any journalism class or history, we know that if it wasn't for Pulitzer and the war against William Randolph Hearst competing for readers, and they're the ones that have created what we call today's yellow journalism. We wouldn't have a National Enquirer or all these gossip papers, or in your lingo, BuzzFeed or Perez Hilton or all these gossip sites. They're the ones that started that, all for the sake of selling newspapers. So screaming headlines, right, Amy?
Yeah, so Jack uses that at one point. The headline is very boring. It's been the same for several weeks. So he folds up a paper and shouts out a headline, and the guy buys it from him after
Yeah,
having other
that's
people
it.
pass. And the other character says to him, hey, you just lied. And he goes, no. I told him he heard it here first, and he did. Doesn't matter that the paper doesn't say it.
Exactly right. He's
So,
the
yeah,
liaison.
that's
He's
how
the
they sold.
middleman.
Yeah.
I know Amy and I can remember this. Are either of you old enough to remember the time when people did have a newspaper delivery person in the morning? A lot of times, most papers now become morning editions, and so they have to be on the step early, so you wouldn't have quite as many young people. But do you remember the day of news carriers, either of you?
Yeah, there have been multiple moments in our old house. We would have newspapers end up on our front doorstep, and we would never see them drive by at exactly
They just kind of
on
appear,
their
right?
bike.
So early.
Yeah, that's the way it was intended to be. Now, if you didn't get it on your step when you're waiting for first thing in the morning for work or breakfast, it could be another issue. If you're tuned in and you're wondering, what are they talking about? It sounds fascinating. We're talking about Disney's Newsies. That's the wonderful musical. It's based on the movie. It's not done very often, but our friends at Holdcraft Players, they are the ones that are doing it right along the east here, our neighbors along the lake in Michigan City. It'll open this coming weekend, so that's on the 16th?
18th.
18th. I keep getting these days mixed
That's
up.
okay.
So 18th will be the opening performance, and that'll continue then all the way for the next coming weekend as well.
Yes.
7 p.m. are the performances in the evening or the Sunday afternoon matinee. 2 o'clock, I think I saw on the
Correct.
poster there. You will not want to miss it. It's a great ticket price. You can go online and purchase the tickets that way, correct?
Yeah, you can purchase online. You can also purchase at the door, but we like to see the numbers and who's coming.
Right, then you can kind of plan. You're right. With 400 seats, you will probably be safe and be able to get your tickets if you show up. Is it assigned seating or general seating?
It's general seating.
It is general seating.
admission.
Although with a large cast like that, a lot of family and friends will absorb a lot of those seats. So you are better to go online and make sure you get your tickets, and then you know that you will be safe. I want to just give a quick little teaching moment as we start to wrap up here. the newspapers I brought in front, if you are tuned in, you're able to see the images, or you see us in your social media and you're streaming and you see all these yellow papers. These are from when I first started. So a number of these are from 1991, 92, 93, South Bend Tribune and the Valparaiso Vita Messenger. These were done at a time when they would all be pasted up. So there wasn't really computers to use yet. Instead, everything was pasted up on a giant kind of a light table, they would call it. Like you'd look at maybe photo negatives, and they had a huge mirror above them because as they were pasting it up, everything would have to be in reverse because that's the way the typesetter would do it.
Right.
And if you've ever heard the term, oh, the best parts of this movie or the best parts wind up on the cutting room floor, that's because when they were actually having the typesetter spit out the strips, they would use hot wax and a roller, and it sounds so archaic, cut it and place it on the giant plastic plaque and really literally build the page. The headline would be bigger, it'd be a strip, and then the story. And if the story overlapped where it was supposed to go, they had an X-Acto knife and you just cut that off and you throw it on the floor. Or if you really wanted it in, you had to somehow fit that and overlap another paragraph. And for a comma, you'd cut off the tail and make it a comma. If you cut off the tail of the comma, it makes it a period.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it all sounds, again, today's world of cut and paste. You can do it all. But, yeah, and, of course, the clickety-clack of typewriters. All of that will come to life in Newsies, the story, again, of the war of Joseph Pulitzer, William Randolph Hearst, based really on the historical facts that happened. It all unfolded in New York when the young news carriers, the newsboys, fought for their fair amount of delivering the newspapers. It's just mere pennies, correct?
Yes.
But boy, what an important war that changed the course of history when we talk about workers and we talk about unions, right?
Yes, 100%. Those boys really started a revolution.
Anybody else that we need to make sure we give a nod to? Sponsors, underwriters, other cast members, the set design looks like it's a multi-tiered set. It looks incredible.
So that's between myself and Arturo Pozos, who is the head of the Holdcraft Performing Arts and stuff, did a lot of that design. Anthony Holt is our music director, and he also makes a little appearance in the show. There are just so many people so supportive at Holdcraft. The board is amazing. I've had such a great directing experience with them. We had lots of donations of newspapers because although we make our outer newspapers that have our headlines and stuff, you have to stuff them with something to make them more bulk. So the LaPorte Herald Argus helped us out with that.
Great.
A lot of different gas stations and grocery stores in LaPorte donated papers to us.
That's great.
We had some individuals come in. It was just great.
Newspapers are your fun fact for the day is that the most expensive part of publishing a newspaper each day is the printing cost. The paper is very expensive. The ink, it's not the salaries, I can guarantee you. And so you see fewer and fewer newspapers, even in our gas stations on the racks, fewer subscribers, because, of course, wonderfully today, you can have it delivered right here, and you can have a digital edition, but there's something about holding that piece of paper in your hands. And I know it saves trees, but you're right, it would be hard to come up with when you need bundles of newspapers when there just is not that many even produced in real life today. So that is something to think about. Amy, was this one of your first times at Holdcraft, or you've done other productions before there?
I was in a production with Holdcraft, but this is my first time directing with them.
there.
Yeah,
Good.
I mean, I've been directing for 25 years within the community, but this is my first time directing for them.
Good.
Yeah.
And then how about our cast members here? Other productions you've done in that space before, either of you?
Yes, actually, the first time that we both met was 2 years ago in a production of Beautiful, the Carole King musical.
Yeah.
That was my first
wonderful.
introduction to the company and to meeting so many friends that I'm very close with now.
Now, as a journalist, I would get a hand. Well, first, we want to also know other productions you've been in as well at Holdcraft.
Yeah, I've done Holdcraft for the past 4 years now.
Okay.
I started in Lightning Thief, and I always get my years wrong. I want to say 2022. Probably school years.
Lightning Thief, another great one that's not done very often. So Holdcraft kind of has that niche of doing signature pieces you're not just going to find anywhere. That's great.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Yes.
I was in Beautiful. It's where we met the Cranes and everything. I also then did Puffs the year after. And then with
Okay.
Newsies, so.
Yeah, as I mentioned a little bit before, I'd get a hand stop if I don't ask this question because it was planted at the beginning of the show and I skirted around it. Same last name.
Oh,
the connection being,
this is my son.
all right, which I bet sometimes it can be even tougher when your mom is the director because you are going to hear about any misstep or anything. The last question we'll leave our audiences with, and it's all right, you're amongst friends here. The one scene that is still not quite ironed out, but it's getting there, and boy, it's either because there's so much going on, or the way the dialogue and the timing has to be. What's the one that still needs just a little fine tuning?
For me, it's not a whole scene. It's just the crack the whip. And all the kids in the cast, everyone will understand. They're just I asked them. There's a point in a fight scene that happens that I wanted them to crack the whip, and now people of our generation understand what that means. We used to play it on like in the schoolyard. Yeah. These guys have no concept, trying to explain how to do it, and they just don't understand.
It just doesn't come through.
So it's just not quite there, but.
Any other curveballs for either of you right now that you're, or that's the one that rings?
I think, a little personal thing. There's a duet that we do in the musical, and for like multiple different times that we've been singing it, I've always been singing the wrong harmony, and I know it's something that I just got to keep nailing in my head.
Yeah.
But I think I could say one with the creating all the newspapers, the specific positions you have to do with the right timing of the music. I think we've got 4 whole days to fix it up, but I think that one is the one that I know I need to work on.
Well, my news cap off to all 3 of you. It's not an easy production to do, but it's certainly an important one. It's a wonderful one. Newsies, Holdcraft, Players Performing Arts Center in Michigan City. You want to get your tickets right away. It's opening up this weekend. So the last couple weekends in July, you'll have it all ironed out, and it'll be perfect right by the time you get to that second weekend, and you're just about to bring the curtain down. That's the way it always works, but that means you're ready for next time. Please come back again with anything you've got going on, and thank you for being here today. And thank all of you, all of those that are tuned in, either our viewers or listeners, for our Of Notoriety this week. We'll be back next week with all the latest news and ticket opportunities. Until then, enjoy your path and wherever the rest of your day, evening, or morning may take you.